You know, there are some verses in the Bible that are so familiar, we feel like we know them inside and out. But what if a tiny shift in perspective, looking at how it's written, not just what it says, could change everything? Well, today we're diving into a fascinating structural reinterpretation of one of those very verses, Matthew 6, verse 1.
Here it is. I'm sure you've heard it a million times. Take heed that you do not do your charitable deeds before men to be seen by them. Now, on the surface, this seems pretty straightforward, right? It sounds like a simple warning. Don't do good things for the wrong reasons. But the key to this whole new perspective is hiding in plain sight, right in that phrase, to be seen by them.
So the way we usually hear this explained, it's all about what's going on inside your head, right? It's a check for pride. The thinking is, if you can give to charity in public and your heart is pure, you're fine. But if you're secretly craving that round of applause, then you better do it in secret. The main job is policing our own inner motives.
But hang on. What if we've been putting all our focus on the wrong part of the sentence? The source material for this explainer poses a really sharp question. What if this isn't about a psychological checkup on our pride, but actually a very specific practical instruction about the method we're supposed to use for certain religious acts?
And the tool we're going to use for this is something called structural reinterpretation. It sounds complicated, but the idea is simple. Instead of just assuming the verse is about psychology, we're going to look at the nuts and bolts of the sentence itself. How is it built? What is the grammar actually pointing to as the main idea?
So, to really get a handle on this, we're going to step away from the ancient text for just a minute. The source we're looking at gives us a couple of brilliant modern analogies that use the exact same sentence structure. And by understanding these, I think we can unlock the logic of the original verse.
Okay, so let's try a modern-day example. Imagine a police officer says to you, "Take care that you do not wear your belt very loosely in order to sit comfortably." It sounds pretty simple, but the way this sentence is built is the key to our entire investigation.
So let's think about this. What's the real problem here? If you were to get a ticket, what would it be for? Is it for the action of wearing your belt loosely, or is it for the motive of wanting to be comfortable?
Well, it's pretty clear, isn't it? The prohibited action, the thing you're actually getting in trouble for, is wearing the belt loosely. The phrase "to sit comfortably" isn't the offense itself. It's just describing the most common reason why someone would do it. The rule is about safety, not your desire for comfort.
So, the bottom line is, the warning is laser-focused on the action, the loose belt, and not the motive behind it. The desire for comfort is just helpful context. It's not the actual violation.
Okay, let's lock this in with one more example just to make sure we see the pattern. Picture a lawyer saying, "Make sure you do not use excessive force to get information." You can hear it, right? It's the exact same grammatical structure.
And it's the same deal here. The thing that's banned is using excessive force, period. The lawyer isn't saying it's okay to use excessive force out of frustration just not to get info. No, the ban is on the action itself. To get information just describes the usual reason someone might do that forbidden thing.
So what do we found? There's a really clear grammatical pattern here. Sentences built like this always have two parts. First, there's a direct ban on a specific action. And second, there's a description of the common motive for that action. And the crucial takeaway is that the motive part is just for context. It's not the main point of the rule.
All right, now for the really exciting part. Let's take this grammatical key we've just uncovered in our modern examples and use it to unlock that original verse we started with.
And this is the real aha moment. When we apply this exact same grammatical lens, the verse breaks down in a powerful new way. The prohibited action is doing charitable deeds before men, that is, doing them in public. The common motive is to be seen by them. Just like the seatbelt and the lawyer, the motive is just describing why people often do it that way.
You see what this does? It totally reframes the entire verse. The primary command isn't just an internal heart check for pride. It's actually a direct instruction against a specific method of worship, public display. The focus shifts from our internal psychology to our external actions.
Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Wait a minute, what about that other verse in Matthew chapter 5 where Jesus tells us to let our light shine before men so they can see our good works? That's a great question. Doesn't this new reading create a flat-out contradiction?
And this is where things get really interesting. The argument from our source is that we're not dealing with a contradiction at all. We're actually dealing with two totally different categories of spiritual work. Let's break it down.
So the idea is this. The Bible talks about two different kinds of spiritual works. On one hand, you have what we could call Matthew 5 works, things like miracles or healing. These are public by their very nature, and their purpose is to glorify God. But then you have Matthew 6 works, things like alms, prayer, and fasting. These are acts of personal righteousness, and their purpose is to build a private, intimate relationship with God. They have different purposes, and so they have different audiences and different rules.
And all of this brings us to the really big idea behind this whole reinterpretation. This isn't just about managing our feelings or doing a psychological self-check. It's about following a divine design, what the author of this theory calls a spiritual protocol.
So what on earth is a spiritual protocol? Well, it's the idea that for certain acts of worship, giving, praying, fasting, secrecy isn't just a helpful tool to keep our pride in check. Secrecy is the point. It's the divinely designed method for creating a sacred, private space where we can build true intimacy with God. So when you think about it, performing these specific acts in public isn't just a failure to manage our pride. It's actually a breach of that intimate space. It's kind of like trying to have a deep, personal conversation with someone you love in the middle of a loud, crowded party. The protocol of secrecy is there to protect the connection itself. And that leads us to this really powerful final takeaway from our source material. Making public what was designed for secrecy isn't just a character flaw, it's a structural violation. It's a direct act of disobedience to the divine order, no matter how good our intentions might be. And that leaves us with a massive, provocative question. If this structural reinterpretation is right, if certain acts of worship really do come with a divine protocol of secrecy, what does that change for us? How does shifting our focus from constantly policing our internal motives to simply obeying an external method, how does that change the way we actually practice our faith?